Won't you listen to reason? Will you open your eyes?
We've got Jonathan in Arlington. How are you?
Hey, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for waiting.
This is my third time calling, second time talking to you, Matt.
Mm-hmm.
The topic is unfalsifiable God, unfalsifiable soul, and happiness. And I'll try to be brief, since, Matt, you're familiar with what I was talking about probably about a month ago. Where we left off was, obviously, I believe that one should believe in unfalsifiable God, if it indeed makes them happy. And where we left off was, you said, I asked you what was the problem with that, and you said, well, the harm it could cause is that, well, essentially, I mean, I don't care about happiness. I mean, I don't care about the truth, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And I take exception to that because I feel like I do care about the truth. So
you're wrong.
So I told you I would think about that. And I've thought about it, and I think if you're a little bit off when you say I don't care about the truth. I think a more accurate assessment would be, not that I don't care about the truth, because I think there are different levels of caring. I don't think it's either I care or don't care.
Yeah, and my position is that your level of caring about the truth is insufficient.
Well, what I would say is that I'm just more willing to risk having an untrue belief.
Yeah, it's called gullibility.
Yeah.
And I don't say that to be insulting. I mean, I realize that people are going to take it that way. The thing is, if you actually care about whether or not something's true, then one of the primary things is to say, I'm no longer willing to simply believe something because it feels right or feels good, because I understand that I can be fooled and I can be wrong. And so I need to take steps to try and find out what the actual answer is. And if I'm unable to find the answer, as I was just explaining to the last caller, I'm in a position of I don't know. I'm not justified in claiming that my lack of understanding or my inability to find a better answer justifies a God answer or anything like that.
But if we make assumptions, and I've heard it on the show, we make assumptions that pleasure is preferable to pain, life is preferable to death. If pleasure truly is preferable to pain, and I'm talking about unfalsifiable God and unfalsifiable soul, that's something that to say that you're going to search for the truth, neither you or I could search for that truth, because by definition, there is no truth to search for, because you can't get there.
Yeah, if you're asserting that it is necessarily unfalsifiable, then yes, it's a dead end. And I don't know why you're wasting any more time on it.
What I'm arguing for is the unfalsifiable God, so I want to stick to that God.
Well, I'm asserting, okay, here's the thing. If you're asserting that you only want to talk about an unfalsifiable God, there's no point in continuing the discussion, because I have zero interest in that. It is an intellectually vapid exercise.
Well, just because you have no interest, I mean, philosophers do things or discuss things that many people don't have interest in, but they discuss it philosophically.
Sure, but I care about truth, and if you set up
not something of interest.
No, I care about truth, and if you're going to set up something that cannot be demonstrated to be true, then you're just wasting my time.
Okay, you say I'm wasting your time, but this is a path that many believers go through. They go from a fundamental belief to atheism. It's a path. And right now, somebody in the middle like myself, it comes down to a God that's unfalsifiable. That's the dead middle that I'm at. And I'm asking a question of why should I not believe it so I can step over. So even though you might not be interested for your sake because it doesn't make any difference to you, it makes a whole lot of difference to me and a lot of other people. So when I ask the question...
I understand. What I'm saying is I don't know how many other ways I can explain. I'd love to come up with a different explanation of... You seem to understand that if the God proposition is unfalsifiable, that you cannot be rationally justified in believing that it's true, correct?
No, I believe you can be justified.
No. Rationally justified requires falsification or falsifiability.
By what definition? Is that something that I could look up?
Well, you could start by reading some Karl Popper on the philosophy of science. But the big point here is that, let's see if I can cut this down. If it's not falsifiable, if this is not something you can demonstrate, how can you be justified in believing it?
The same way I could be justified in eating it. I ate an orange this morning. The same way I was justified in eating an orange. I opened the fridge and asked, should I eat an orange? I like the taste of an orange. So it was logically for me to say that I should eat an orange. That's why I'm justified.
You're eating an orange is an actual testable. Well, now that it's in the past, I can't go back and test it. But I mean, from your perspective, you ate an orange because you liked it. But are you saying that the orange that there's some possibility the orange didn't exist?
No. I'm using an example of preference.
Yeah, I don't care about preference. I care about truth. Your personal preference.
I'm saying that what justified it is that I want to do it.
No. I understand that you're saying this is my personal preference. I
Correct.
care more about my personal preference than whether something's factually true. Therefore, I am justified by my personal preference. And I'm saying when we're talking about whether or not something's real, your personal preference is irrelevant. The truth is not impacted in any way by how strongly you believe something or how much you like something. It's simply not.
But the truth is on neither of our sides. You as an atheist and me as a theist, the truth is not on any of our sides. You're just not willing to accept it.
How is the truth not on either side? How is the truth not on either side of a binary proposition? Either there is a God or there's not, correct?
But you said you...
Answer the question. Either is a God or there's not, correct?
Correct. But you didn't say you believe there's no God. You just said you don't hold the belief. So you're not believing. I don't know if you have strong atheism, but the typical atheist is not going to say, I believe there is no God. They're just going to say, I don't hold the belief that there is a God.
Sure, and I'm fine with both of those. But if you believe that either there's a God or there's not,
Correct.
then either your position of theism is true or false.
Oh, yeah, I agree with that.
That's a truth proposition, not a preference proposition. It's not like I like the taste of oranges. What you're arguing when you talk about your preference for oranges is like, well, I don't know whether there's a God or not, but I prefer this God to this other God.
No, I'm saying I can choose to believe. Belief is a choice.
Belief is not a choice.
No,
Belief is
I
not a
don't-
choice in any simple sense. Can you choose to believe that you can fly?
Belief, in my opinion, belief is a choice. Belief.
No,
Okay, your opinion, once again, isn't relevant. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
no. The question was, can you choose to believe that you can fly?
Yeah, you can choose.
Okay.
Somebody can choose to believe it, but
and
if you try, don't die.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean
Okay.
you
So
can't
if you
choose to
test
believe
that,
it.
you'll find out. In fact, you cannot fly.
This is something we're not actually going to solve here about belief being a choice. I am firmly in the camp that belief is not a choice.
Yeah.
That belief. When we say I believe something, that means you accept that this proposition is true. That means that you are convinced. Now, you can be convinced for good reasons or bad reasons. You can be convinced to varying degrees of certainty. But you don't ever simply make a conscious choice to be convinced. You can certainly make a conscious choice to act as if you're convinced because you're convinced of some benefit to acting as if you're convinced.
So you're saying that
But at a foundational level, beliefs aren't choices.
I agree that belief is a matter of being convinced. Passive belief is what you're talking about, where you're being convinced by some external source. That's passive belief, where you're not doing anything. What I'm talking about is active belief. I am being convinced, but I am the convincer. See, I'm being convinced from within.
No.
Are you telling me it's not possible for me for somebody to convince themselves?
No, that's not
No.
exactly what I'm saying at all.
But that's what I'm talking about. I'm convincing myself, so I am being convinced.
Sure. Why would you want to convince yourself of something if you don't know that it's true?
Because of what I said before. It makes me happy. The same reason why I choose to eat an orange. I
Sure.
like the taste.
And now we're back to where we were a month ago, and we've wasted more time on this show. You don't care as much about the truth as you do about what feels good to you.
And my question is, what harm am I causing by doing that? At the end of the day, what's going to happen to me that's harmful by what I'm doing right now?
Well, I don't know. I'd say the first thing is you're not going to find out whether or not your proposition's true. But I don't know what decisions you're going to make based on your personal preference.
Neither are you. You're not going to find out whether or not there's a God, whether or not that proposition is true as well. Neither one of us are going to find out whether that proposition is true or not.
No,
We're
no,
supposed to believe.
no. My position doesn't prevent me from continuing to seek the truth. Yours does.
We're talking about unfalsifiable God. So in that sense, none of us is going to find out whether that proposition is true. I'm sticking to that guy because you always ask what God do you believe in.
Yeah, but I don't
believe
believe that the God proposition is unfalsifiable. That's an unjust assertion that you're making.
I'm not asking you to believe that the God proposition is unfalsifiable. I'm saying I believe in unfalsifiable God.
And I'm saying I don't care.
My God.
And I'm saying I don't care. What point is there in believing in something that's unfalsifiable? And if you're just going to come back with, well, I like doing it, well, good for you. But it has nothing to do with truth.
I'm not asking you to agree with what I call God. You asked me, or you asked your viewers to determine or to declare what God they believe in, and that's all I did.
Sure.
You said, what's the point of believing in it? Well, I mean, that's another topic.
No, it's the only topic I care about. It's the only topic I care about. Once you have stated that you believe in an unfalsifiable God, my question then becomes why. See, it's a two-part question. Tell me what you believe in and why. And so my why question is, why believe in that? And if your best answer is because it feels good, well, good for you. But some of us care about whether or not the proposition is actually true. And the fact that you're talking about an unfalsifiable proposition means that we don't have any truth claim about it.
So at the end of the day, let's just pretend like there's a score to spin.
At the end of the day, I'll be off this call. What? Go ahead.
I didn't know if you hung up on me or not.
No.
Oh,
I will in a minute.
Say there's a score being kept, and whoever has the least untrue beliefs wins.
Yes.
So we both go through our lives. I believe there's an unfalsifiable God. You don't.
Yes.
So let's just say you were right.
Yeah.
And there is no unfalsifiable God. You win. But who's going to ever know? How does that affect your life now and my life now? If my belief
Here's
makes
the
me
thing.
happy,
Here's
your lack
the
of belief in this makes you happy.
This is
and
what I
At the end
raised.
of the day, we die and we're unconscious. Nobody knows. What difference does it make?
Okay, first of all, this I raised a month ago or so, last time we talked. I can't tell you exactly what impact your belief has because I don't live your life. But if you think that your beliefs exist in a vacuum and that you can just believe something because you like it and it doesn't affect anything else you believe, that's absurd. All of our beliefs impact the other things that we believe and make us more likely to believe absurdities. And the more absurdities we believe, the more out of tune with reality we are. And the more out of tune with reality are, the more potential harm there is. Now, it may be the case that you believe in some nonsensical God for no good reason, and it never really does you any clear harm.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that it was absent of harm. That doesn't mean that it didn't impact any decisions you made. And it doesn't mean that you lived the maximally positive life.
Well, I don't think anyone can assess what's the maximum positive life. I'm just trying to see if there's a direct link to this belief that I have to anything negative happening. Because, like you said, you don't live my life, so you don't know what the ultimate utilitarian belief would be. I don't think anybody can know that. But if I can make a direct link between this and something negative, that's what I want to base it off of. I wanted to see if you can make that link in any way possible. And if you can't, because you don't know my life or you don't know what other things I believe, I understand that.
If I
But
can't,
we're just
then
talking
what?
about this specific belief. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I care about now.
And I care about truth.
Okay, so there's nothing direct. There's no direct link to anything negative.
I don't know. I don't know your life. I just told you that. What is it specifically? What is it? Hang on. Apart from unfalsifiable God, tell me what you actually believe. Don't describe that it's unfalsifiable. Tell me what you actually believe.
That's it.
That's a nothing.
Yeah. What do you get from that?
Well, unfalsifiable God. That's not it. I should piggyback that with unfalsifiable soul. So I believe there's an afterlife, some type of afterlife provided by this guy.
Sure.
So,
What kind of afterlife? What is it that you believe about the afterlife?
It's an extension of it's more life. I mean, there's nothing else I could really pin on to it.
Okay, sure. That's actually, to some extent, we can demonstrate that that's not the case. I mean, we can actually assess the truth value of that. We can't get to absolute certainty. We can't, go beyond death's door. But what we do know about the brain and what makes you you and your memories and preferences and everything else in the studies that we've done with people with brain damage, all of the evidence points to the conclusion that when you're dead, that there's no you left to continue. And so you're believing in a proposition about an afterlife.
Unfalsifiable soul. An
What?
unfalsifiable soul.
You say unfalsifiable one more time, I swear to your God that is nothing, I'll hang up on you.
When you ask me what I believe in, you're saying you could assess something. You can't assess something that's unfalsifiable. That's why I feel like I need to make.
Yeah, I can. If it's unfalsifiable, it is unfalsifiable, which means there can be no rational justification for believing it. That is an assessment. It is a pointless waste of time thing.
Jonathan, Jonathan, have you heard the when you say unfalsifiable, then you by definition are saying that there's no evidence for it, correct?
I believe we can't measure the evidence.
Okay, so there's no evidence. So have you heard the saying that which is asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence?
I've never heard of that, but I mean, I understand it, yeah.
Well,
It's the reason I've almost hung up 12 times since you got
Yeah.
on the phone.
You're-
It's really, and I don't because I'm optimistic that we can actually come to some kind of understanding, but it's incredibly frustrating.
I'm not.
Okay, let me ask you a
because we're
question.
back-
Do you think there's any evidence that can be provided for the question, should I eat an orange?
Sure.
But,
Sure. We can actually determine whether or not an orange would be beneficial to you or harmful to you.
Let's pretend like that the orange provides just as much nutrients. I'm not allergic to, I'm not diabetic or anything like that. Let's just say it came down to whether or not I liked it. Can there be evidence whether or not I should eat it? If the health thing is not a question.
If you neutralize everything but opinion, can I find anything other than opinion? What a completely ridiculous, unfair way of narrowing things down.
I just asked a simple question.
No,
Can
you
there be
didn't.
evidence provided?
No, you didn't.
No, you didn't.
You are constructing and eliminating all possibilities that don't fit within what you want to happen. It's the same thing you do when we're talking about questions of truth. You don't care as much about the truth as you care about what your opinion is. And so, yes, I will say to you, Jonathan, if all other factors are equal, and the only determining factor about whether or not you should eat an orange is your personal opinion, then that's all there is. Congratulations, you defined a tautology and wasted an hour.
Well, that and you've discovered how we make dietary choices every day.
I mean, you ask whether or not there are
I'm
ways
not
to
allergic and I
determine.
want to eat it.
Yeah. It reminds me of in some contentious discussions like on abortion that have taken place, where somebody says, okay, we don't get to include rape cases, we don't get to include these cases, we only get to include this narrow set of cases that make my point easier to defend. Well, I'm not here to make your point easier to defend. I'm here to point out that your position is indefensible.
Well, we set up ground rules all the time that says pleasure is preferable to pain and life is preferable to death. So if I base my argument based on those ground rules, how is that illogical?
Okay, I have actually used those phrases when I'm talking about secular morality, and I say that you can start with those simple beginnings as rules of thumb. That as a general rule, life is generally preferable to death, pleasure is generally preferable to pain, etc. But those aren't absolutes. Pleasure is not always preferable to pain. If I put my hand on the stove and I feel pain, there's a problem in my brain. I need that, pleasure, I need that pain in order to identify me, or in order to identify the risk. So it's not a global absolute that pleasure is always preferable to pain. These are generalities that we use and we build from that. And those will come in conflict at some point as well, when your life is so painful and miserable that death may actually become preferable to continuing to live. So you're trying to take generalities, turn them into absolutes, in order to go right back to what we just finished talking about, which is justify that you believe something because it makes you feel good, and that's what you want to care about. You don't want to address these other issues. Because if you did, you could go do some research into what we know about human identity and whether or not there's any good reason to think it's remotely feasible that anything that makes you you survives your death. Because it doesn't.
Like I said, I mean, They are generalities, but I think that's a good place to start from. Those assumptions, pleasure versus pain, life versus death, I think those are good places to start from.
I agree. That's why I've used them. What I don't do is finish there and then use them to justify my own personal preferences.
But if I start there, I mean, I think in a way, I'm not going to say you don't. I think in a way, the truth for you it gives you pleasure to feel like you hold as few false beliefs and as many true beliefs. I think that gives you pleasure.
Yes.
Some reason that gives you pleasure.
Actually,
But I don't do that because it gives me pleasure. Go ahead.
Right.
You don't do it because
Anytime we feel like we have discovered the answer to something, some truth, yes, that we feel pleasure. There is actually a brain chemical that gives us pleasure when we feel like we've discovered something.
What if everybody doesn't have that chemical? For instance, what if believers, they don't have that chemical when
They do.
do.
Every human has this.
Well,
You don't think there are different levels of what gives people more pleasure than another? Like, for instance, that
Absolutely.
might not give me as much pleasure as, for instance,
sure.
me
So
believing something that makes me happy.
let's test your hypothesis. Are you saying that my brain chemistry changed in between the time I was a believer and when I was a non-believer?
It could have.
Well, I'm not saying it couldn't have, but I mean, do you think that that's really plausible?
I think it is possible.
Okay.
Based on what, by the way?
His opinion.
Oh.
That's what we're basing
well.
everything on.
Excuse me. Because he ate an orange.
So yeah, when I say that I don't, when I say I want to believe as many true things and as few false things as possible, and yes, that gives me pleasure. I don't do that because it gives me pleasure, because it doesn't always give me pleasure. Sometimes the truth can be actually kind of painful.
So you would do something that gives you pain?
Well, now you're asking about an action which is separate. But yes,
Yes.
in some situations.
No, I really do believe that belief is an action. That's what my argument hinges on. And Matt, you don't agree with that, so it's kind of a dead end.
Yeah, which is what I said 15 minutes ago.
If you think belief is a matter of being convinced, then I think that one
Belief
can
is a
convince
brain
themselves
state.
and still be
It
convinced.
is.
Belief is a brain state. The action that you're wanting to call belief is the profession of belief, not belief.
You don't think I can cause my own brain state by convincing myself? You don't think anybody
Not
can
in
do
the
that?
simple,
No.
not in the simple sense that you're talking about. The process of becoming convinced is more complicated than simply an act of will.
Okay, then we're the disagreement then.
Yep.
Yeah.
Unless I don't understand. I don't think you. I mean, that to me that's an opinion. I don't think you guys are scientists. If you say you don't think that you can convince yourself, I take it as a matter of opinion.
No, we're not. We're not scientists. But the thing is, we actually do understand how beliefs are formed and the fact that this is a brain state, and I don't think you understand that.
Well, the other thing is that I'd encourage you to actually go look at what some of the neurosciences are actually finding out
Yeah.
about when decisions are made with respect to when you think you made a decision, because the decision's made before you think you made it. That's just science.
Yep.
But also, go look up V.S. Ramachandran. There's
What's the name?
V.S. Those are the initials, and the last name is Ramachandran. Ramachandran, I think. Some really good talks, including, I think, at the first Imagine No Religion conference, where he talked about a split brain patient where the brain had developed two separate personalities, and one of them was a theist and one of them was an atheist. There's also cases where people's brains and personalities have been reset. They've lost their memories, their personalities have changed. There's big questions we need to address about whether or not that's still the same person and how we view them. What obligations are they still under? There's huge questions about these things. And as long as people like you are more comfortable believing that your identity carries on after death, in spite of these evidences to the contrary, that you as an individual can be reset right now while you're living, I'd say that's a potential harm of your belief, that it inhibits the discovery of what's actually happening. And it can cause you to hold views that may not be in your best interest. But I don't know your whole life, so I don't know. I mean, I know plenty of Christians who are Christians in name only. Oh, yes, I believe, I believe, I believe. And what they go out and do every day doesn't seem to be impacted in the slightest by what Christianity tends to be. But at the end of the day, if they actually believe, that's going to inhibit their ability to find out the answers that Christianity asserts. Now, you're not accepting a full-on, doctrine with a bunch of assertions. You seem to, well, so far we've only been able to narrow down that you believe in an afterlife. But, believing in an afterlife based on personal preference is indistinguishable from believing there's no afterlife based on personal preference. And I don't want to believe either based on personal preference. I want to believe the proposition that is supported by actual evidence. And I don't understand why you
would.
wouldn't.
Either my position or your position is going to get either one of us any further. To me, we're both at the same level. I don't see how what you're believing is going to get you further, happier, or make you more successful in life than what my position is.
Well,
and if I'm going to cross the line to be, I want to be an atheist, if I want to do that, I need some type of motivation. And if I can't find anything,
no, that's a shifting of the burden of proof.
No.
I don't see why I should.
That's a shifting of the burden of proof. But go ahead, Jim.
If we're doing this right, we form our beliefs based on where the evidence leads, not on the fact that, I don't have anything to disprove this thing that I want to believe. So what you've done is you've put the belief out there, this is what you want to believe, and now you're looking for some justification for it. That's backwards. Okay? What you want to do is go from the evidence and go where the evidence leads.
I'm asking, I understand that mode of thinking, but my question still is, and I know, Matt, you're going to say you don't know my life, but just according to this belief, what do I gain? What do I gain by doing that?
What difference does it make what you gain?
Let me ask you something. How has believing in false things ever helped anyone?
Well, I don't know how it's helped anybody else, but if I can judge based on me, if it's giving me hope and happiness, that's helped me.
Well,
so if that's
why
helping me,
would you
find something else that can help me more?
Well, why would you?
Now,
why would belief in something that you can't demonstrate to be true give you hope and happiness? I mean, what's hopeful about that?
Hello? Oh, damn, I thought you stumped him and then we just lost him.
Yeah,
Oh, well.